right, everybody. Welcome to the FCA Locker Room, the show where we explore how faith and sports come together to transform lives on and off the field. I'm one of your hosts, Vincenzo Pepe, and today I'm joined by colleague, friend, co-worker in the ministry, Steve Heintz. He is our Northeast Regional Director of Talent Advancement. We wanted to take a little bit of a different approach today. We've been trying to share more about the ministry of FCA, the vision of FCA, and this vision is amazing, right? And we've talked about what it looks like as a global organization and even at the local level. But we need, in order for that vision to be successful, to be attained, we need workers in the field, right? The harvest is plentiful, is what they always say, but the workers are few. That's staff, right? That's donors, that's board members, that's volunteers. And so we're going to talk a little bit about talent advancement, what that looks like, people that work on staff, how does that whole thing come to be, and all of those things, just to kind of peel the curtain back just a little bit for people to understand, hey, this is how the FCA ministry operates, and this is what staff looks like, and all those types of things. And who knows, by the end of these 35, 40 minutes, you might be clicking on apply after you
There
hear
we
this.
go. That would be perfect.
So, Steve, I just thank you for being on today. I think you and I have had some conversations. I think that this is going to be really informative for people, and maybe even not just about the FCA ministry, but just kind of what occupational ministry is in a sense.
Mhm.
But if you could just give us a little background of yourself, kind of what did you do before FCA? If you had some sports background, what, professionally, what was all that?
Sure. Yeah. It's so good to be here, Vincenzo, and share a little bit. And I do think this is such a great part of our ministry, often unseen. It's the hands-on that often people see when it comes to FCA. But we do need to hire. We need to recruit and hire. So yeah, it's just a privilege to be here. But in order to kind of answer how I got here, we have to go back quite a few years to when I was in college, and I was fortunate enough to grow up in a real good high school basketball program. Had great coaching, great instruction, discipline, all those things. And I was fortunate enough to play at the college level. And it was about halfway through college when, I didn't really have a clue what I was going to do, but had been asked to work at a rival high school's basketball camp for a week in the summer. And as I did, and that week progressed, my excitement level just kind of went off the charts. And I found that what I had learned as a player, I could help others and kind of build into other lives. So it was then that I really felt a strong calling, almost physical calling to coaching basketball. And you never know what that's going to look like when you're
Mhm.
in college and you're trying to set the path for your life. But I think the Lord kind of arranged things for me. When I graduated, I did go into coaching. I stayed 5 years at my alma mater as an assistant, and then another 4 years as the head coach that I was fortunate enough to get. So all through my career, kind of this track of coaching and leadership and teaching has been a part of it. And I've stepped away from coaching a couple of times, but the Lord has always brought that back. And, whether I was a financial advisor or a school administrator, um, a small business manager, just whatever I was doing, I had this urge kind of larger than myself to teach and coach in that role. And I had an empathy where I felt like, I was always building into people's lives. So when this conversation started with FCA, it was almost 2 years ago. Um, I had to look back at my life and see these tracks and these paths and the inclinations of myself, and felt as though it had to be the Lord that arranged all of it, because the alignment between what I had done and kind of the things that made my heart beat a little bit faster, all fed into this particular role with FCA. And so it really became clear over this process of interviewing and applying and dialoguing with our VP, Nathan Bliss, that this was clearly what the Lord had set before me, and I wanted to be faithful to that. So here I am. I officially started January 1st of this year, so I'm kind of in that rookie mode still.
Yeah.
But that's the story.
Love it. All right. So, right, your title is Director of Talent Advancement for the
Yeah.
Northeast, but what is talent advancement? What does that
Yeah,
mean?
sure, sure. Sounds like I'm an agent for Hollywood
Yeah.
talent, I guess. But yeah, if there was a tagline for talent advancement, it would be recruit, hire, train, and develop.
Mm,
And that's kind of the summary of talent advancement, the areas that I would focus on. So I guess essentially, while it's my defined role with FCA, I partner with each staff as they or I may identify prospective staff who may be a fit. And so I'm involved in the process with each director in each area of our region, New York and New England, to walk with them in their most important hires. And that process can take a long time of bringing somebody from application all the way through fully onboarding them as staff. So no one person can do that alone, and so that's where the partnership, the teamwork, one of our core values of teamwork, really comes into play. Is on an average to onboard somebody of 11 months, there's give and take, there's hand holding, there's shoulder to
mm,
shoulder walking with each other on bringing somebody into that fully. So let's say recruit, hire, train, and develop is the
yeah.
summary, and then
Yeah. I think
everything.
if I'm remembering correctly, I think from the time I first applied and had like my interviews till the time I was actually offered my position, it was right around 3.5 months.
Oh,
Uh,
you were quick.
oh, okay. All right.
You
I
were
felt
very
like it was
quick.
pretty long. So
Yeah, yeah,
Um, so yeah, it was about, I think, yeah, probably 3.5 months. I mean, we did a lot, I feel like pretty quickly on, like with me and the state director at the time, we had conversations definitely weekly, if not bi-weekly. And then I was
yeah.
connected with two other staff members. So I feel like maybe we went pretty quick, but it felt like those 3.5 months, I felt like at one point I was like, do I have the job or what's going on here? But looking back now, I could
Yeah,
see like now that I'm in a position to hire people, like I understand it, right? Because when they were hiring my position for my area, like there was no staff people here. So they wanted to make
right.
sure like, hey, is Vincenzo truly the right fit? But it was also too
Exactly.
like, is FCA the right fit for Vincenzo and his family? And so there was a lot of like really trying to understand that. And I was also learning FCA at the time of coming on board because I hadn't
Sure.
heard of FCA prior. So
So
there was
much.
it was a very unique situation in a way.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think everybody's story is unique to them, right? So you were 3.5 months. I was at least 9. I was working another job. I had a seasonal job, but then I was coaching in the winters. So it was an extended, and some people, once they say yes to FCA, they dive in full time to fundraising, and others have to, stay at a job and raise support as they're
Oh
working.
well,
So
let me rephrase. From the time I applied to when I was offered, it was 3.5 months. Then it took me another 8 months to fully come on staff.
gotcha.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It was another eight
Okay.
months before I actually came on staff with FCA.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
that's why we say the average is right around 11 months for
yeah,
to say from saying yes to full support. So yeah.
yeah. So like the staff talent advancement, not just the, I guess, yes, the recruiting and the hiring and you said the training and developing, like why is that important for FCA if we're planning to reach every coach and athlete? Why is that part of it? Why is the talent advancement piece so important?
Yeah, I love the whole teamwork aspect of this because everybody plays a role. It's like the body of Christ. Not all of us do the same thing, and so we need each other in full dependence and full teamwork to help each other throughout the whole responsibility of FCO. So I say it's a couple different things. One is we know the Lord's commanded us to go and make disciples of all nations, right? We have this great commission, and so part of this is simple obedience, you know, and again, then you bring the roles in of each staff member, and you're the brain, I'm the foot, and
Mm,
we kind of we complement each other in terms of these assignments and roles and responsibilities. So it's a combination of obedience and a heart for the lost people, and you're more hands-on maybe with ministering to people from a day-to-day basis, and I'm, on another side of the responsibility. And I love the structure that way that FCA has strategically set it up that way to be this complementary organization that works so well together. Again,
Yeah.
the teamwork core value that we share, and I just think it's in some part that reflects excellence too of the organization, which is another core value, right?
Yeah. I,
Maybe,
I think too, like I mean, you said it, just there's not a one size fits all role in FCA. And it's because we all, like you said, we all have different gifts and talents and we can all
right.
contribute and bring value in different ways. And there are some people that are just way more extroverted and they can build a relate, like you can talk to them for 30 seconds and feel like you've known them their whole life. And they're probably going to be the people that are running the huddles and running the Bible
Sure.
studies, right? And doing all those things. And then you have people that their minds just work a little bit differently and they see things in numbers and all those types of things, right? So they might be a little bit more on like the financial or the donor piece. Um,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
people that just other people just like that big picture, right? Like they can see how something is going to start and like this little tiny plan and then have that whole strategy of how it's going to build up to this thing. And so I do think it is neat. Like I mean, when people think about FCA and they see the FCA staff person come to a school or a camp, like that's a small percentage of the people that are actually behind everything else that's really going on.
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's amazing how, like you said, the gifts of different people, the Lord has thought about all of that, and He puts us in places that we can effectively minister it from our own lane, from
Mm,
our own responsibility. And I think of coaching in my own background and how, I'm late stage coach. And so would I have coached for another couple of years? I did step down when I came to FCA full time, but would I have coached for another couple of years? And there are other people in a different stage of life or different gifting that can slide into that role that someone has left and become even more effective oftentimes. So
yeah.
I think this is all in the Lord's planning for
Yeah.
FCA and how He cares for this organization.
Absolutely. So along those lines, right? People having different talents and things like that. So
Yeah,
obviously there's no maybe there is maybe but I feel like there's no true blueprint of like all right this is the exact person, this is the exact experience you need, this is the exact amount of educate whatever it might be to come on
sure,
staff, right?
sure,
I can tell you from my own experience, like I never thought I would go into ministry at any point in my life.
right.
I didn't have an education in it. I didn't really have like a true background on it necessarily. I mean, I had some experience with things I was doing with my church and personal, but nothing to this level. So what are some qualities, perhaps, right? Because I think the qualities are going to overmatch maybe the experience or education level that somebody might
Yeah,
have. What are some
yeah.
of those qualities that FCA looks for in a staff person?
Yeah, and this can happen differently in somebody's life at different times, which I also find fascinating. So it's a complex, exciting answer to give, but essentially, FCA staff members have typically a calling on their life of some type and some intensity toward working with other people, a calling toward ministry. I mean, not that this is more important than other responsibilities, other roles. But man, if you're going to do ministry full time, the Lord hopefully has called you, equipped you, gifted you in a certain way. So, we say calling, character, coachability. And then, obviously with FCA being a sports driven ministry, we attract those with an athletic background, which is pretty exciting
Yeah.
too. So a lot of players, former players, a lot of coaches. But what we're growing into and evolving in a real exciting way, since we have, excuse me, 8 different sports environments, as we call them, prospective staff can also come from a whole variety of backgrounds, right? So we have ministered through activities like motocross, hunting, surfing, fishing, cycling, all of these non-traditional, what some of our colleagues say, they're not the ball and stick sports.
Yeah,
There
yeah,
are
yeah.
other gifts that people have and other passions. So we have a full ministry based on some real broad backgrounds. So I'd say, what prepares somebody to work for FCA? Love the Lord, love coaches and athletes, the desire to make a difference for eternity in people's lives and their
I
faith.
always, sometimes people ask me, well, like, "Hey, can I be involved with FCA? Like, I didn't play past like middle school or
Sure.
whatever the case was." And I always ask them, I'm like, okay, couple things. Do you love Jesus?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So that's one thing in the positive, right? Do you see sports as a vehicle to share the gospel? Yeah, of course, right? Most people, if not all people that I ask that, they say yes. I'm like, okay, do you know the difference between a touchdown and a three-pointer? And if they say yes, I feel like they're good to go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they
Yeah.
need to, yeah, we don't need to be we don't need to have competed at the highest level. Sure, we have some people on our staff that played professional and coached at really high levels, but which helps in some way, right? Because it does help like build that camaraderie, helps,
Sure.
you can kind of
Sure.
talk shop. But as
Yeah.
long as you kind of, even if you're just a sports fan and you're around that and you understand, kind of some of what goes on, I think those are obviously also qualifying pieces.
Yeah, you bet. You bet.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
I had an interview early this week with somebody who has a wrestling club, and it's so exciting that FCA is open to all these different sports and activities, and they're positioning a whole nother environment called combat sports,
hmm,
to accommodate mixed martial arts and Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu and wrestling and all these things. But yeah, even non-athletes, and we have so many volunteers who help this organization run events that, you might not suggest they are athletes themselves, but they have a passion for ministry,
yeah, yeah.
and so willing to help through sports. So yeah,
So you mentioned a little bit about like there's these different sport environments and that might relate to somebody a little bit more. I mean, there's a lot of different roles in FCA, right? We have reps, we have directors, we have multi-area directors, we have
yeah, yeah, that's right.
you're a director, right? So there's regional things, right? So if you could just give a brief overview, and this is probably something we'd have more of a conversation with somebody like, what are some of the key roles that maybe specifically in the Northeast we're looking to hire?
Sure, sure. And we do say, I think that's a great line. We tell people there's a place for everybody. And it's also possible to come in as a volunteer, somebody who's simply, interested in helping the ministry speak into lives, or, somebody helps at a golf tournament, or somebody comes to camp and just pours water for people. But that's often an entry point for people to work into a staff position with FCA. So it's neat to see how so much is in process in somebody's lives. So, but we, like you said, there are all these different roles within the Northeast, and we're still a developing region relative to the rest of the country. You have some regions that are 300 staff members in one state and 200
Hmm.
in another, and we're 70 in throughout our Northeast region, New York and New England, and so we are in growth mode. Um, I can tell you what we're working on. Certainly, Hudson Valley. You've got so many schools there, and so many potential openings in schools that you could hire another director or two, as well as area reps. Those are incredibly important experience or positions, because there's so many coaches and athletes to work with in
Hmm.
even your region, your area. So then you have like one of the roles that I'm working on right now is an urban director for the city of Boston. And FCA has made a huge commitment, a strategic commitment to minister in the cities and in urban areas. And so
Hmm.
we are hopefully onboarding somebody in Buffalo, and that's a real exciting person in an exciting position. And Boston and New York City and Providence, these are major cities, major
Yeah.
markets, we call them, that really need ministry in those cities, and that's going to require a director, a director to oversee and almost develop that ministry from the ground up, and that means building staff, and so you would have a couple directors under an urban director, and then you would have the people doing the hands-on ministry, those area reps. And then after that, we are a volunteer centric
Yeah.
ministry, right? And so the volunteers that help us are those doing ministry or helping with events. So, we say our area reps may be our rock stars because they're the ones doing hands-on ministry with the coaches and athletes. But
Sure.
man, there's no pecking order. It is so vital that we hire at every single level.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I know you feel this way, and one thing I always I mean I always want to make sure I include when I'm talking to somebody. I'm very quick to say this is we're not looking to fill a position, we're looking to hire the person. Because
Great.
so many people get caught up in like, I don't know if I'm really a director. I don't know if I'm really like, what
Yeah.
does that look like? And then sometimes they're like, all right, never mind, I bow out. But if like I tell people like, hey, as in the interview process, I try and find out what are you passionate about? What's your desires? What are you strong at? Right? Because we can almost build a position around that, right? Like maybe our softball director doesn't exist as a
Yep.
title, right? But we can create a softball director or whatever it might be. So
Exactly.
I think those pieces of it too is like that's where I think the sport environments of like outdoor and motorsport and action sports, like that's where that was created because we had people that were passionate and knew a lot in those areas and they created a job role and a ministry opportunity out of those things.
Right.
And I'm
Right.
sure
Yeah.
there's going to be more that will come.
Yeah, and there are people that we come across that just mountain biking resonates with them and they happen to be a school teacher. What more perfect combination of somebody to do huddles in
Sure.
that area because you have certain non-traditional sports that have really grown, really exploded. And that fits the mission of reaching every coach and athlete and helping them into a growing relationship with Christ. So yeah, it's vital.
So so maybe right now somebody's listening to this and we're a couple minutes into this now, more than a couple minutes obviously. We're kind of explained a little bit about this, but what kind of encouragement could you give to somebody who's listening to this and they have a heart for ministry, but they feel unqualified?
Yeah, sure. Well, and that's, we've all probably been there. We don't feel adequate for something. And I think the main thing is we've all been created in the image of Christ, right? And so there's value in every single person. But, if somebody has the qualifications of loving the Lord, loving coaches and athletes, and a desire to make a difference for eternity, then we can find a place that fits their unique gifting and comfort level. I would also say that, you've been in it longer than I have, but the amount of preparation and training that FCA provides, and that's on the front end as we get ready to come on board, in every aspect of the ministry that we undertake, we are so well prepared by FCA. And then I would say on an ongoing basis, we're together on a weekly, at least weekly
Mm.
basis, and we're all building into each other. There's an ongoing aspect of spiritual preparation and training for the kind of the nuts and bolts of every particular role. And so, that's not to deny that somebody may feel unqualified in the beginning, but there's such a wonderful process that can give them the training that matches their heart for ministry.
Sure.
So we would say, step out in faith, step out in confidence,
Yeah.
and right, trust the process.
Sure. I mean, I know I 100% felt unqualified when I was,
Sure.
as I kind of went through the interview process and kind of learned it more. I'm like, I don't know this stuff. Like how, like I didn't go to seminary. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
I've never like, I've led some Bible studies here and there, but like to what level and like all these different things. Um, but I feel like I don't remember. It was definitely someone or something within FCA. I remember seeing or hearing. Um, God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. And
Yeah.
so it's just about
Yeah.
being obedient to that. And then
That's right.
the Holy Spirit's going to provide what you need to. And there's
Yeah.
definitely been times where like things I've said, I'll look back and be like, that was not me speaking, right? Because I needed the words in the moment. But like you said, like the plug and play and the resources, like that's a huge piece that I love for our volunteers too, is because they're volunteers, right? So they have full-time jobs or they have other responsibilities and they're running huddles at the same time.
Sure.
So instead of taking an hour or 2 hours during the week to try and prep and put this stuff together in a whole, like, hey, we have a Bible, we have an athlete Bible or a handbook that you could just turn to a certain page and just go through it right then and there, right? So
Yeah.
I think that some
Yeah.
of those things also help kind of in the training process of with our staff too, of like these are these are ways that you can literally just copy and paste into and edit to some degree, right, with your audience. But these are ways that we help train people up and like you don't have to create everything.
So true. And there's something there's a humility in people who don't feel qualified, right? And in some ways that's a godly attribute. And think about who runs a major number of our high school huddles. Well, they're high school kids,
Hmm.
right? And so, if anybody might feel unqualified, look at that role. But we have
Yeah,
ninth and 10th, 11th and 12th graders just studying enough to facilitate and not necessarily, they're not seminary trained. So,
sure. Yeah,
yeah, a lot to be
that's good.
learned from our younger people.
Yeah. So now somebody takes that step and they apply, right, and they're getting ready to come on staff. I don't know if it's necessarily unique to FCA. I definitely don't think it is because a lot of ministries operate in this way where we have to
Sure,
raise support, right? And
sure.
so some people don't truly understand what that means, right? I mean, in some ways we think like, all right, I'm gonna support ministers that are going to Africa or Asia or whatever it might be, right?
Yeah,
But we're just missionaries in our own backyard in a sense.
yeah.
But if you could just kind of shed a little bit of light on kind of what that support raising, what does that mean?
Right. It is unique to ministry. And so we're in that in that process, and it certainly doesn't end when somebody comes on board. We continue to encourage each other in support raising all the way through our ministry, and that feeds into other people being able to come on board as well. So, I guess if we I felt it because I had even begun an interview process with FCA several years ago, and I felt as though raising support was a stumbling block for me at that particular time. Just the circumstances of my life and probably my confidence level.
Hmm.
And yet, when it came around this time, it was as though that was an add-on to the whole dialogue and the whole process. And so, I really believe that the Lord had prepared me differently for that. And if there's calling on somebody's life, then we trust the Lord to equip us and provide as well. And I think that the training that FCA provides, we call it boot camp for a reason, right? It's
Yeah.
intense and there's a lot of pre-work that goes into that. And by the time somebody leaves boot camp, then they're very well trained to raise support for themselves, both in the scripting, the things to say, the confidence level to have, the belief that Scripture expects us to raise support as we preach the gospel. So, I think that we don't ever hide it or make a secret that that's a key component. Um, there are moments that probably you and I both get anxious and fearful, but then that process of training and preparation and the encouragement from staff and one of our regional guys is, as we both know, one of our regional directors, his full-time role is to support people in donor and board advancement, which means
Hmm.
supporting them in their ongoing fundraising. And that continues intensely for a staff member's first year, and then it continues even beyond the first year in a little bit less intense ways. It's a part of what we do, and I think, it's faith building as we
Hmm.
step out and trust the Lord for His provision because He owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, and it's His ministry. It's not us, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's giving to the Lord's ministry. Then I guess there's a learned confidence. I'm not going to, suggest that people should just automatically be comfortable with it. And I think that's part of growth and part of faith development
Hmm.
is to struggle in the process a little bit. So,
Yeah.
but the
It's
Lord is faithful.
absolutely it's absolutely difficult to like even just kind of wrap your head around because obviously for most people they haven't had to do that before.
Yeah.
I know like myself when I was kind of going through the interview process and trying to figure that out, I felt like every time I sort of understood it, then I really didn't understand it again, right? And
Uh,
and I'm like, what do you mean like people like individuals and churches and organizations like they're going to be supporting me? Like what does that mean, right? And so
sure.
um,
Sure.
but I will say, as many times as I kept thinking, like, is this even possible? Is this like, what's the longevity in this? Then I kept looking at the people I was connecting with on staff, and there were people that have been on staff for a decade that have been
Yeah.
raising their support for a decade. So
Yeah.
it's proven that it works, right?
Yeah.
There's like you said, there's strategy behind it. There's a way to do it. There's
Yeah.
best practices and things like that. But at the end of the day, I have a board member that always tells me where God guides, God will provide,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's the truth.
It is amazing, and some people are gifted at it, and that's why they write books or they're full-time fundraisers. But I still go back to the book that was foundational for boot camp called The God Ask.
Mm,
And that's kind of the process of which we ask people to come on and support the ministry as well. And I still go back when I need motivation, when I need encouragement, I still go back to that book and I'll read 10 or 12 pages of it just because it's so encouraging and so instructive of how to do it. But we all need that encouragement every so
yeah.
often. So
Plus, it's like it's a built-in encouragement piece because it's like the people that are giving to you, they're believing you. They're all in. They're literally giving. They're putting their money where their mouth is, right? And saying
yeah,
like, Steve, I believe in you. I trust you to do what God's called you to do. Like that.
amazing.
It's one thing for somebody to say that and say, oh, we're gonna pray about for you, and hopefully they are. But it's another thing for them to truly put like their resources and treasures up and saying like,
It's
you're the
one of the
person we
most
believe in.
encouraging aspects of the ministry,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, So what? So we know the need is great, especially here in the Northeast. I mean, the like we said, the harvest is plentiful. There's so many people. There's so many unchurched areas in this place, and um, sometimes we knock the South because it's like, oh, the South has it easy, right? Because everyone goes to church down there. They have their own
Sure.
issues, obviously, um, but I think what is it about right here, right now, and like where FCA is going that it's important that like that why we need the staff now? Like what is it right now that's going on, or like kind of the future of what's going on where the need for staff is greater than it probably ever has been?
Yeah, it is. So we have currently around 70 staff here in the Northeast, and that's so exciting because from 10 years ago, 8 years ago, that number was so small compared to what it is now. But um, couple of reasons are driving our desire to put more staff on, and the primary is that we are seeing the Lord breaking out in pockets of this region where there seem to be small revivals going on. It's exciting to see these pockets, maybe Long Island being one where our staff is very small. So the Lord is doing this ministry. The Lord is sending his spirit to these areas, southern Maine and the Connecticut seacoast area. We're just seeing so many pockets where kids are coming to the Lord. We see it at camp experiences where the number of confessions, acceptances for Christ is just breaking out. So we know there's a mighty work going on, and we get excited and we want to be a part of that in greater ways. So, 70 staff can't service whatever the number is, 8 million people in New England, and then you add New York State and New York City to that,
Mhm.
and we're talking 30 plus million people, I believe, in this region. So we can't service that with 70 people. So there's staff necessary in all areas to continue to feed into kids in high schools and coaches that don't have have ministry opportunities. We're seeing less and less people going to church and receiving the gospel through churches than ever before. And so, what are the ways that people are coming to faith? Well, it's incredible that social media is driving a piece of that, but sports, this great separation that's happening in the sports environment where, it's the me first generation, but on the other hand, we see more and more athletes proclaiming a true faith in Christ.
Yeah.
And so we have opportunities to leverage the message that's going out already, but we need the workers to actually service that. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not a one time. Somebody comes to faith. It's not one time. We're committed to build their faith and then service through ministry huddles, ongoing things, but then get them involved in the local church as well.
Yeah.
So,
It
uh,
is neat too. Like you just said, it's not a one-time thing because I mean, I've had huddle kids in our huddle, students in our huddle who have been involved for, a couple of years or whatever, and then they graduate and they want to still stay connected with, and so I'll find out where they're going to college, right? And
yeah,
hopefully we have a FCA is on a lot of college campuses, so hopefully there's a
yeah,
presence or there's something in that area where they can continue to stay involved with FCA because that's the other neat piece is it's not just like you said, it's not we're ideally at least we're not just seeing them at a camp one time and then that's it. Like
right,
there's another piece to it, and that's obviously where the staff comes into play. Is you
right.
know the last year our biggest camp that we had in this area was 42 kids, I think it was.
Yep,
So think about that just alone, like 42 kids for one staff person. That's way too many lives and
absolutely.
relationships to balance and things like that. So we have the more people. I mean, I know right now, you said we have about 70 people on staff. I just went through like my strategic plan for staffing for the Hudson Valley. I have 105 positions that need to be filled. So I'm
Yep,
confident that we're going to get there. I believe
yep,
it, whether it's in 5 years or 55 years, whatever it might be. Hopefully, I'm here
yeah,
to see it. But
yep,
it's just the fact that like there's a reason we have that number, right? We look at the schools and how many people and the different areas and how populated they are and things like that. And so, we
yep,
feel like in a perfect world, that would create enough staff in the area to reach every coach and athlete in the Hudson Valley. And
yeah.
so we all of our directors have that to a degree in their area. And so yeah, 70 would get me a good chunk of the way if everyone just decided to move to the Hudson Valley. But
The Hudson Valley only, though, right?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Well, if they could clone us and put us out there to multiply that part of the ministry too. But it's exciting to know that right now we're not able to accommodate, but it's exciting, I think, also to pray to the Lord to send workers because that's what Scripture commands, right? The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few, and that's our prayer, and that's we have this cooperative, this teamwork that puts us out there also looking for staff members all the time. It's
Yeah.
part of all of our responsibilities.
And it's neat to know that we have so many people still yet to be reached, right? I mean, it's a good problem. It's a good problem to have in ways, right? Because
Yep,
that means there's so much room for the ministry to grow and so many people to get to know who God is, right? And
yep,
it's sometimes we're doing it in unconventional ways through a sport camp or a motocross camp or whatever it
yep,
might be, which is, kind of a cherry on top for some people.
yeah, yeah, yep.
So as we kind of finish up, Steve, just any last minute encouragement or maybe anything that we didn't land on, or if someone's kind of being feel like they're being tugged towards ministry, any encouragement that way?
Well, it's hard to know how exciting this world is until you actually kick the tires and visit a huddle or a camp or whatever it may be. But those of us on staff often say we get to do this, right?
Mm,
We love the Lord. We desire to see other people come to the Lord, and we get to do it through the language or the platform of sports, which was central in our own lives. And so what better combination could there be than, somebody's passion and gifting for sports and other environments, all leading other people to Christ. And so it's an amazing privilege to work in this environment. And, if somebody does want to kick the tires, there are just all kinds of opportunities to do that. But, prayer and support is needed in so many different areas of our region the Lord is working. We just want to be a part of it
Yeah.
too. So
Yeah.
we want more teammates.
Yeah. That's great. Well, Steve, I appreciate you being on with us today. Hopefully, this gave some insight to some people listening. I mean, they hopefully, some of our listeners have been listening from the beginning, and we're starting to put some of those pieces together of like really what FC is, how it works, how it operates, and now kind of seeing the staffing piece of how the ministry, like how areas are developed and things like that. And so, appreciate your time on this, and thank you for what you're doing for us as staff. Right, you support me and you support our other staff members in this area in our region. So we appreciate that. And for our listeners, I'll be selfish. Come move to the Hudson Valley. We need some people. We need 105 people still. So we're looking, but in all honesty, if you've ever felt like, maybe there's a piece of me that feels like, okay, I could do this, or maybe I am, maybe I'm just feeling led to that. God's calling me at, just hey, just put your hat in the ring. You're not making a
That's
commitment. Let's
right.
check it out. Let's have a conversation with a director in your area. Go to teamfca.org to check out the positions in your
Yep.
area. I'll put the link in the description so you can check that out too. Or
Yep.
go to the Hudson Valley website and see our positions and whatever the case might be. But um, we'd love to have that conversation with you and just talk a little bit more about what that looks like and see where you fit in for FCA because like you said, there's a spot for everybody. If it's staff, if it's a director, if it's a donor, if it's a volunteer, whatever it might be, there's definitely room for people to be here and more people to be reached. So appreciate your time today, Steve, and
You bet.
everybody else. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you again next week.
Excellent.